But I tell you what, there's other things. Be looking for. We're very excited. I think we're going to be able to get suppressors out of the NFA as well as SBRs and
Oh man,
SBSs. So that is actually doable. And so if people are following our
huge,
alerts and taking action, it's really
huge.
critical at this time.
Erich Pratt.
It's Eric Pratt.
In the flesh. It took a little bit to get you, but we are, man, we're excited to have you on. You
So
might be the
grateful.
biggest, political guy we've had on so far.
Really? Well, that's
Yeah.
an honor, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of difficult in doing what we do, though, if you think about it, just because, with all the powers that be in all of the social media stuff, they really like to restrict you guys. So, it's kind of interesting.
So this is unplugged, or what is it in wrestling when kind of the equivalent?
Yeah, like the no holds barred.
No holds barred. Yeah,
No holds barred. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, Matt,
We are really grateful for you to join us today, Eric, and welcome to Whiskey and Windage. We've been starting off every show with a read for our guest of an AI read of who is Erich Pratt.
hey, Matt, before you get into that, let me go ahead and hit an ad read, and you got one right behind me.
We got to pay the bills, baby.
We got to keep the lights on. So this one, of course, is for our friends over at EOTech who are signed up to be at Goals this year. So if you're not at Goals, here's our free plug for them. If you've not signed up to go to Goals, Knoxville Convention Center, you're going to miss out. So as far as EOTech goes, every shot counts. And when you need optics you can rely on. EOTech has been a leader in advanced sighting technology, offering holographic and reflex sights that give you unmatched precision. Whether you're in the field or on the range, EOTech's cutting-edge designs provide a clear, fast target, even in the most challenging conditions. With a reputation for durability, accuracy, and ease of use, EOTech optics help you stay on target every time. All right, you're up, Matt.
We also
pay the water
want to thank our friends over at Wheeler Tools. When you're working on firearms, precision is key, and that's exactly what Wheeler Tools delivers. Whether you're mounting optics, swapping parts, or making fine adjustments, Wheeler's line of professional grade tools ensures your build is as precise as possible. From torque wrenches to specialized driver sets, each tool is designed for accuracy and durability. At Wheeler, quality craftsmanship is at the core of everything they do. Don't settle for anything less when it comes to your firearms. Trust Wheeler Tools to help you build and maintain in confidence.
All right, now let's get to the good stuff. Let's go
All
to
right.
AI. Let's go to AI. What do
Paid
they
the
have to
bills.
say?
Like, this one actually turned out pretty good. Like, it could have gone either way, especially with AI and being fed by the big Google monster and stuff. But it says Erich Pratt is the senior vice president of Gun Owners of America, a national grassroots organization representing over 1.5 million Americans dedicated to promoting Second Amendment rights. He has been with GOA since 1990, advocating for pro-gun policies in Washington, D.C. and state-level firearms issues. Pratt has appeared on national media outlets like NBC's Today Show, MSNBC, CNN, CBS, and Fox News. He's also author of a couple of books.
Yeah. How's that sound? Do you think AI did you justice?
That's not bad. It did undercount the size of our organization.
It sounded small.
Yeah, we actually represent over 2 million, but
Let's go.
It's you got it in the millions, so not going to quibble.
I think anything coming from the internet with a positive light on that subject, we'll take it as a win,
That's
I guess.
So I do want to say, I told Matt I was going to do this, so I asked AI, if I were liberal, how would I describe Erich Pratt?
Interesting.
Do you want to hear what it had to say?
I'm scared, but go ahead.
It says, it's not too bad, but it's just kind of funny. It says, I mean, it doesn't call you names. Erich Pratt is a far-right gun lobbyist who opposes even the most basic gun safety laws, framing any regulation as tyranny while fueling extreme rhetoric under the guise of defending freedom. I was like, what?
Also true.
Yeah.
Other than the the extreme rhetoric, I would say
Yeah.
everything else there is accurate. I mean, when the thing is, when you're standing on the Constitution, those who are on the left look at you and they think that you're the one who's extreme when it's actually they're the ones who are extreme, right?
Yeah. Well,
But so other than that, that's pretty good. Yeah.
I thought it was good. I compare it to like Michael Jordan. All the other basketball players at the time hated him, and it's just because they weren't him and they weren't as good as he was. I mean, you know your stuff. You guys have built a crazy good team out there, and when you live by the motto of no compromise, it's not really hard to think about. I wonder how GOA would react to this. I mean, it's pretty simple. So
Yeah, absolutely.
let's get started and let's kind of turn it back just a little bit. Can you kind of give us a brief overview of your journey to becoming senior vice president and what inspired you to actually join GOA? I think you did. I think it said in the 90s. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. Well, it's been quite a journey. I would say that I came kicking and screaming.
Yeah, it runs in your genes, kind of.
Well, it's funny now looking back on it. You don't even know the half of it. Talk about it being in my genes. It's like from both sides, my mom and my dad. But politics just bored me. I mean, I've been watching reruns of, the old Sherlock Holmes with Benedict Cumberbatch. And whenever he's presented with a case that just doesn't interest him, he just gives it the boring, right? Well,
Right.
for me, that was my attitude to anything political. And, my dad was a state legislator. He, of course, was head of GOA for over 40 years. And so as a state legislator, we were always campaigning on weekends. Every night at the dinner table, it seemed like we're discussing politics all the time. None of this interested me. Now, I was very pro-gun. I just had no interest with what was going on in Washington. So, and my parents even had the audacity when I was in high school to force me to take a public speaking class. And I promised them I will never speak in public. I don't need this class. What did I know, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, no desire to get involved in politics. Really, the change happened. It was actually a rather life-changing event. I became a Christian and literally everything changed. And so I'm in my second semester of college. I still have no idea what I want to do. And that's it's actually when I realized that old habits die hard. Because in becoming a Christian, I mean, it's kind of like that song, Jesus Take the Wheel, right? I mean, I decided God's going to come first in my life and everything. But at this point, I'm still forgetting to talk to him about some of the most important things in my life, hence kind of, those old habits dying hard. So I'm asking everybody I know for advice, like, hey, what do you think I'd be good at? Help me out here. I had no idea, no clue. And then all of a sudden it hits me, there's one person I haven't asked. I was like, God, what do you want me to do? And I kid you not, it was literally within a week. I mean, just days. All of a sudden, I went from looking at politics and anything government related as boring, stay away, it's the plague, to all of a sudden loving it. I mean, it was so scary. It's like, like a skin disease all of a sudden is spreading and you're like, what's happening to me? I mean, that is literally how I felt. And it finally occurred to me, well, you did finally pray for some enlightenment. And now all of a sudden you're passionate about something. So, I say I came kicking and screaming. I mean, that's because, at one point, what I'm doing now is the last thing that I would have wanted to do. But honestly, once I started working after I went to grad school, I mean, this is what I had a passion for. This is what I wanted to do. And so here I am now, 35 years later, loving what I do. I mean, I would love to work myself out of a job, which would be great. Like, our gun rights are safe for the, next 50 years. But you guys know what
I think
the
you got some
battle's
job
like.
security. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
probably
there's
not
job
going to
security.
happen right away.
Yeah, I think that's the one time in history that someone actually didn't really care about job security. Like, you know what?
You don't got to
Like,
worry about it too
man,
much.
Like,
There'll always be tyranny to fight,
there's
Eric.
always going to be a tyranny to fight, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It's
I
funny
think-
you say that, though. Sorry, Matt. I was going to say, it's funny you say that, though, when you first started, because you went kicking and screaming. And I think that just is symbolic, basically, of almost every, I don't know, parent-child relationship, as far as they could have been telling you to do that. They could have been dragging you to piano lessons. They could have took you whatever. And it would have just been like, at some point you would have rebelled. I don't want to do this. But it's really interesting, because this is it in that age, like growing up with that, like learning the politics, learning the legalese, the language, that kind of stuff, that can get tough.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting, so now looking back on it, I see, even though I was really despising a lot of that at the time, now I see it was actually training me, even though I didn't realize it at the time. So, sometimes things are happening that are above our pay level, and there's direction and guidance that we're even unaware of at the time. So, anyway, I'm very thankful for that. So
I think that's a cool point to make too, Eric, in that like even someone in your position could have started as, I think, hold on, back up a little bit. I think most gun owners are the silent majority. We're quiet people. We keep to ourselves. We, live and let live. And so unless it's immediately affecting us, like right now in this moment, it's hard to get a lot of people actually acting who are on this side of the gun argument. And it's hard to be a good advocate, and a lot of folks don't know where to start. And it all starts with voting, really.
Right.
But I think that it's a cool story for even someone in your position to say, "Hey, I wasn't always the most active person in this
Right.
movement."
Yeah. Yeah. So I can relate, when I'm making an appeal to people. And certainly this last election cycle was one such case where we were really just putting the full court press to get people who'd never voted before, and just challenging activists to say, hey, you need to bring people with you to the polls, because you're right, there is just that malaise. We just want to be left alone. And anyway, so yeah.
I was going to say, it's a double-edged sword, though, because now that the new presidency, now that everything has moved in and the tide's turned, it's always so interesting in the firearms industry itself, because when a Republican is in office, or I don't even want to say a Republican, that's a wrong word. When someone tolerates or is gun friendly, it's actually bad for the industry.
Right.
It's great for everybody else. It's great for freedom, but it's bad for the industry, because no one feels the need to get out and buy and hoard and stockpile. So it's crazy how even doing what's right is sometimes hurting the industry you're in. But
Yeah.
that's not a reason to stop.
Right.
It's just always, you're never going to win on all facets with that.
If you're reloading, you need tools that work as hard as you do, and that's what you get from Frankfurt Arsenal. Their top-of-the-line reloading equipment, including case cleaners, powder dispensers, and presses, are all designed with precision and efficiency. Whether you're a competitive shooter or just a weekend reloader, Frankfurt Arsenal helps you save time and get more consistent, high-performance rounds. Reload smarter, reload with Frankfurt Arsenal.
A clean firearm is a reliable firearm, and Tipton gun cleaning tools help you keep it that way. From high-quality cleaning rods that won't damage your bore to specialized solvents and brushes, Tipton offers everything you need for a thorough, efficient cleaning. Whether you're prepping for a competition or just maintaining your hunting rifle, Tipton's precision tools ensure your firearms are in peak condition. Make gun cleaning simpler, more effective, and easier with Tipton Gun Cleaning. Trust your firearms to the cleaning expert.
No, you're right. That's a constant battle, a constant challenge. I mean, even now, a lot of good things are happening in Washington, but we still need to keep the full court press, because even with the good things that are happening, we're still getting some pushback in certain quarters, and yet, we've seen there, people are kind of settling in, and they think they've died and gone to Second Amendment heaven, and
Yeah.
don't need to be as. I mean, that hasn't happened to everybody,
Right.
But overall, we see the trend downward.
Yeah. I mean, there are still states that are fighting for their
Yes.
their basic local rights, and we won't get into each one of those because I understand there are certain hurdles that are in place when it comes to certain states, and no matter how bad you'd love to just be firm and present every day, it kind of makes it for a little bit of a difficult situation. So I want to ask what the boss does. This is interesting to me. So you have been at GOA for 3 decades, and the roles and responsibilities have changed.
Yeah.
Without breaking any confidentiality agreements or anything that's going on, or all these backdoor things. Not that those exist, but you got to get some bills in the way you can. What are your primary responsibilities today? Like what does Erich Pratt do on a daily basis for when you wake up and you're going to work? What does work look like?
Well, you mentioned things have changed over the years. I mean, I started as a research assistant, so using some people will remember what a Xerox machine is, right?
Oh, no.
Oh yeah.
Copying
Oh, yeah.
articles and writing fact sheets and things like that. And honestly, I've probably done every job here imaginable. I've been a state director, a federal director, media director, but now as senior vice president, I pretty much manage everything that goes out that's either written or spoken, in addition to the legal cases that we're involved in. So it's really been a long way coming from the guy who used to just copy articles.
Plus, he gets to show up to events and shake hands and look real good.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that very last part, but shaking hands, yeah.
I love
But
that.
at least my wife is still okay with me, so that's I guess what counts.
Hey, that's
Guess
all.
so.
Hey, that's all that counts. We all know.
That's right.
As long as mama's happy, everybody's happy. But so like when you oversee all of the media, all of the audio, the video, everything that goes out.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of responsible for looking at all that and making sure, like, yeah, that's the message we're trying to put across, or that's what we're trying to do. That's a lot of content. I know you have a great team over there.
Responsibility.
We've met a couple of the people there, and I mean, it's just
Fantastic team. I mean, we put out so much. There's no way that one or two people could do it all by themselves. And I'm just so proud of our guys. And, it's also helpful when you get people who think like I do. They're no compromise in their approach to defending the Second Amendment. And so then it's just a matter of pointing them to, hey, this is what we want. And then they just go run and tackle it. And so, truly being able just to manage it and review things is obviously a lot easier than have to develop everything. I mean, we've got great content creators here. So it's been just it's quite a change from when I first started 35 years ago. It was almost like a small mom and pop shop at that point. So we've really exploded. And, honestly, that's just thanks to our members who have been very generous, and, also some in the gun industry who, have really wanted to help further some of the litigation and things like that. So it's been exciting to watch.
I think it's really important. I will say before Matt jumps to the next one, I do think it's really important though to donate to you guys. When me personally, my story, when I look at how can I be active, I'm active on a local level, not on the big political level. I mean, I guess this podcast is kind of, larger scale,
Yeah.
but in reality, it's when I invest my money, it's super easy just to give your $20, your $50 or whatever, and mail a check and say, I did my part. But what I find really interesting is I actually like to look and investigate where this, like, who am I giving this money to? Am I sending it to an organization that is, taking the fight to Washington, that is fighting for all people's rights, fighting for everything equally? Or are you just trying to take low-hanging fruit in your local area and just like, oh, hey, we got to stay on this, on this pistol, capacity ban in my local town, and that's great. I mean, any win is a win. But I like to see my money being put to use on a more grand scale to help everyone. And I understand you got to help yourself too. But GOA, just looking at the track record of everything that they've done, there couldn't be a better organization for anyone listening to. If you're not a member, go ahead and just sign up. I think $25 is the cheapest for a year membership or something like that. $20, 25, 35, something like that. It's well worth it. So if you're not a member, go ahead and sign up now. We're going to put a link in the podcast for you to click on to go straight there. But definitely these guys are worth your money.
Well, you guys, I appreciate that plug, and it's an honor to hear that coming from you guys. So thank you.
We're members. We were members before we realized that, hey, we could go to these shows that you guys put on as media. Like, that doesn't bother us. Like, we're members just like everyone else. Our money needs to be spent just like everyone else's.
I try and be pretty critical, and for a long time, I gave money to an organization and then regretted it, and then was forever pestered by a million other organizations. And there's a lot of organizations out there with their hand out, especially in this space. And GOA was the first one that I ran into whose hand was also extended back. And so that's why my money goes to GOA and not anywhere else. You guys are described as no compromise. What makes you different than a lot of these other organizations?
Well, we take those 4 words in the Second Amendment very seriously: shall not be infringed. That means we don't support any gun control, have never supported gun control throughout our history, even, so-called gun control light. People might say, well, what about, like background checks? No, that's an infringement. Gun-free zones, waiting periods, the NFA, the Hughes Amendment, it's all infringements. And what's exciting about this is that I see more and more people rallying to that. And quite honestly, one of the accusations that's made against being no compromise, they think, well, you've got to compromise to win in Washington or in the courts. And I tell you what, we've won battles by not compromising. I mean, I'm convinced that if GOA had compromised, I mean, this is my personal belief, I believe if we had done that, we would have already gotten universal background checks by now, and we would not have the 29 constitutional carry states that we do. And here's why I say that. Like, for example, on constitutional carry, we were the original national organization pushing constitutional carry when that was at a time back in the 90s where a lot of pro-gun people were still entrenched in favor of having permits only. And so in some cases, we were getting calls from pro-gun legislators around the country who were telling us, hey, we're being threatened with an F rating for introducing constitutional carry. Of course, back then it was called Vermont carry, right? But, and we would tell those legislators, go ahead with it. We've got your back. You're doing the pro-gun thing. I mean, that's, what the Second Amendment is all about, the right to keep and bear arms without infringement. And that gave them the courage to continue introducing those bills and pushing it in the early days. And of course, then eventually it caught fire. But I think without if we weren't there trumpeting and protecting them, that the whole idea would have been nipped in the bud. And then on universal background checks, you might remember the awful battle we had to fight in 2013 after that very tragic Sandy Hook shooting. And if you remember that era, I mean, everybody from the political left to the political right was saying it's not if gun control will pass, it's a matter of how much. I mean, they just thought this was finally the threshold and that we were going to get gun control. And I tell you what, GOA fought every single piece of legislation that they were trying to introduce post Sandy Hook. And the New York Times credited us at GOA for killing universal background checks that year because we put so much heat on lawmakers when Senate Republicans were working with Democrats to hatch a compromise. And that's what really coerced those Republicans to back away from the compromise. So, the lesson is we can win battles while not compromising. It's been a joy to see that and really be, on the forefront of leading the charge.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess you brought up that you guys were leading the charge for Sandy Hook, not for Sandy Hook. You guys were leading the charge for the gun control and trying to prevent that. And I just think that it's all of these tragedies that are occurring across the country still to this day. They're happening and they're almost like the copycats because of Sandy Hook.
Right.
And it's tragic, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what, and you know this as well as I do, it doesn't matter what laws we pass,
Right.
what laws we etch into stone, what laws we tattoo on our bodies. None of that matters. Evil is going to exist, and evil will always find a way to circumvent the law. And when they do, if no one is there to stop or help stop
Exactly.
the threat, then what are we? What are we a society of? At that point, we sound, not to go cliche, but we sound like a society of sheep waiting on a shepherd to come save us. And we've seen how that goes. The tragedy in Uvalde, that's terrible. But we see how it goes when law enforcement, who I back, who I love, my family's in the law enforcement, but when they're forced, I understand the law enforcement guys are going to tell me, well, they shouldn't sign up to do this job, but they're having to make a business decision and they're having to wait until their boss tells them to go in because they're at fear of losing a job. Now, I understand every one of us would say I would have acted different, but we won't truly know until we were there. I'd like to think I know what I would do, but even waiting on law enforcement isn't the answer sometimes. So you have to be able to protect yourself, your family, and your neighbors, and dispel evil.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, even statistically, when you look at this, 94% of the public mass shootings, where do they occur? In gun-free zones.
Gun-free zones.
They're not hitting police stations or gun shows even. No, they may, the bad guys, they're evil, but they're certainly not stupid. And so they're going to places where they're the only ones with a firearm. And over you see that even from the things that they say beforehand. Many of them make reference to that they're choosing a spot where they were relatively sure nobody was going to have a gun. So yeah, I mean, passing gun-free zones was one of the worst ideas that our country could have embarked upon. And we have Joe Biden to thank for that, and many others, but he was the brainchild. It's kind of a funny term to use for him, isn't it?
As if he could be the creator of anything.
It's significant.
He was the vehicle for sponsoring the legislation. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, the brain was there. I just don't know not if all the neurons were firing, but the brain was there. That's funny.
So looking back, Eric, I mean, it's been 35 years that you've worked for GOA. You just mentioned now talking about universal background checks, but what have been some of the biggest successes you think that some of the biggest wins for GOA during your time? Maybe if they weren't, you weren't directly involved with them, but what are some of those biggest wins for Team GOA?
Well, certainly what I was mentioning there during the Obama term, killing universal background checks, that was fantastic. I think another thing that we mentioned, that the all the constitutional carry states. Vermont was the original one, but we've been involved one way or another in every single state that's passed it. So that's something that we're really excited about. A lot of really exciting things happened during the Biden administration. I mean, as bad as it was, as he was trying to lurch us left in terms of enacting more gun control. We were able to stop funding for the veterans gun ban. So no new names are being added into the NICS list. And most of these are, veterans dealing with PTSD or, basically people that have gone for counseling and things like that. And then their names are thrown into the NICS system. We also, and as much as, we would love to eliminate the ATF, that zeroing out an agency in Washington is really, really hard. So if you can start chipping away, and even with Biden in office, we were able to work with representatives to get over $100 million cut from the agency. And man, were they belly aching about that. I mean, like Senator Dick Durbin saying that's going to prevent their ability to enforce gun control. And of
Thank
course, we were
goodness.
like, yeah, that's the whole point.
That's the point.
So, even up to recent times, also in the courts, we were challenging his executive orders. We got preliminary injunctions on the pistol brace ban, as well as the engaged in the business, which was basically a backdoor universal registration, because it was basically a way of imposing universal background checks on every firearm transfer. But anyway, so we were able to help. Well, with the universal background checks, GOA was the only organization fighting that. With pistol braces, there were several organizations that won victories. So that was very exciting, because pretty much the judges were only giving the victories to the plaintiffs. So we got it for our members and, the state of Texas and, a couple of the other plaintiffs. But it's really a mind-boggling thing. The conservative judges tend to just award preliminary injunctions for the plaintiffs, whereas the more liberal judges say, yep, this is struck down across the whole country, one judge. That's kind of the what we have to deal with in the courts. But all to say, getting back on track, just a lot of exciting victories that we were seeing. And of course, now during the Trump administration, ourselves at GOA, along with some other groups, we're giving them ideas, good ideas for how to peel things back and repeal things and abolish things. And it's really exciting to see a receptive audience and to see things happening that we talk about and suggest. So, things like zero tolerance being ended. Biden's ATF was just using that to put gun stores out of business, or the fact that now the administration is withdrawing from cases pulling arguments that before that they were prosecuting, like they were prosecuting somebody for a pistol brace firearm in DC. Well, excuse me, we have a preliminary injunction against that. So that was the Biden administration prosecuting that, and the Trump administration said, yep, no more. They pulled that, and now they're even introducing amicus briefs. First time, I think, in history, we've seen an administration, a presidential administration, actually offering an amicus brief in a case to arguing for striking down gun control. So just incredible things are happening. It's really exciting, but it's an exciting time to be in the center of that and be a part of that. So yeah, a lot of cool things have been happening, especially in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. You actually got to, sorry, Matt, I was going to say, you actually got to help a friend of the show and past guest as well, Mr. Jeremiah Cottle of the Mr. Bumpstock himself. He definitely on his show, he said when he came on with us, his one statement was, if it wasn't for gun owners of America, none of the victories that we got would have ever been possible. And he even said at the time, we asked him how he felt about Trump, and it was right during the voting, and he made the statement that he felt like he was owed an apology, but he thinks that Trump was probably given bad information, was probably pressed to do something that he just said, hey, if this is what we got to do and it sounds great with everybody here, I'll do it. But yeah, he said that without GOA, removing the ban on the bump stock and allowing his family to start operating again and conducting business. I mean,
That's fantastic. Yeah, I met with him at the SHOT Show, and he was just so excited. And it's true about the Trump administration. I mean, 2.0 is a much improved version over the 1.0 Trump administration. So it's exciting what's happening.
I wanted to comment on that too, because last year at the goals event, the first annual goals event, at that time, a candidate for presidency, former President Trump, had mentioned like, hey, I know that in my first term, like I let you guys down, and he made a promise to the members of GOA that GOA was going to be the organization that he trusted going forward. And so it's good to hear from from the horse's mouth that there has been work there, and he's keeping that promise that he made.
Yeah.
So cheers to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to ask you something that we face a lot of times, and a lot of gun owners that want to be involved and might just not have the words, because we understand if screaming at the opposition and trying to just find that way to slam dunk on them, like you're not going to win an argument doing that. You never win. You always end up messing it up. It's just human nature.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to educating the public to counter anti-gun propaganda, there are a lot of myths. There are a lot of misconceptions about firearms. But what are some of the most common ones that you guys have to dispel?
Well, I think some of them we've kind of touched on. For example, Second Amendment says shall not be infringed, and yet one of the most common things out there is that reasonable restrictions are okay. It drives me crazy, especially in the court system. They rely so much on tradition and history, which in one sense is good for us, because if you go back to the founding era, that helps us. But they refuse to look at those 4 words, shall not be infringed. So they'd rather look at everything else, and even part of the political debate. There again, reasonable restrictions are okay. When not only would we argue that they're unconstitutional, they're completely ineffective. I think one of the other common myths is the idea that guns aren't effective or useful in self-defense, personally, or in defense against tyranny. And you saw that really clearly in the Biden administration. Biden CDC took down studies showing how often guns are used in self-defense because they don't like that information being out there. And so they'd rather keep people in the dark against it. And then in terms of defense against tyranny, I mean, how many times did we have to suffer listening to Biden talking about how, your AR-15 isn't going to help you, against a fighter jet, that kind of thing. I mean, just he would blather on about that. Never mind the fact that our history was birthed in repelling gun control in 1775 and onward. And there have even been examples after that in our own country, fantastic examples. In fact, I get into that in my book, Firing Back, which you can see over my right shoulder. A lot of great examples. But anyway, just that whole guns aren't effective, I think that fuels all the anti-gunners arguments for gun bans, for gun-free zones, for background checks. I mean, it's really the undercurrent. Everything in their minds is based on that fact that guns aren't useful in their minds. So therefore, what's the big deal with a gun ban or, a gun-free zone? I mean, it's not going to help you anyway, et cetera. I think while we call it a myth, I think for some of them it's diabolical because they're trying to suppress the truth. Like what I mentioned earlier, pulling down studies, that just shows they know
They know it.
actually what the truth is, and they're trying to keep people in the dark.
Honestly, the link to the FBI website with those statistics is my favorite argument for anybody. I'm just like, copy and paste, and they're like, it goes to a government website, it puts it all right there. Like,
Yes.
defensively correctly used 2 or 3 times more than for 2 or 3 times more uses for good than for evil. And it's a good one. Like, here, just look at it, just read the numbers.
Yeah, I always face that not that argument. I always face an argument in my own household, and I'm just going to pretend that it's just me and you sitting here, Eric, and none of the listeners are listening because I need some advice from you. She's going to know this, and I'm probably going to get the eye when she listens to this.
It's a few weeks. That's future Mike's problem, though. That's a few weeks down the road.
It's future Mike's problem. So, we like digging holes. That's what we make a good habit of as husbands. She grew up in a law enforcement family. Father was law enforcement. She grew up, they were hunters. She didn't, but the family hunted. She's pro-gun, but when we have the discussion, I can never quite figure out how to win this argument. Not that you're supposed to win an argument as a marriage. They're always supposed to win. But when she tells me that she doesn't believe that she should be able to own the same kind of firearms that I own because I have more training than her. And I tell her that's just a lack of your training. You should get training. But she says, well, no, it's not that. It's that I don't think I should be able to go in and buy some of the things you buy. And I never know how to dance around that without, setting the whole house on fire. So it's one of those like, hey, you're entitled to your opinion, but as long as we're pro-gun, that's all that matters. But what kind of tip or pointer would you give me for that?
There's a couple things. And I've actually faced that in some of the debates that I've done where people have kind of personalized it. And I would just point out, and certainly if they're living in your own household, oh so kindly, that if you don't trust yourself with those types of firearms, then please don't. I think your answer was good. Get training, but if you don't trust yourself, that's fine. But don't impose your fears on everybody else, because what's the alternative? The alternative is ultimately serfdom. In my book, Firing Back, there are some fantastic examples of how guns deter tyranny, but it's not done usually with just little, Smith & Wesson 6 shooters, when Condoleezza Rice, former Secretary of State, talks about how her dad, would with other black men in the neighborhood during the civil rights era, they would patrol their neighborhoods. They were using surplus military firearms to protect themselves against the KKK because the police were refusing in those areas to protect them. So they had to protect themselves, and they did so very effectively. There's some, one of the stories I mentioned is just an incredible example from 1906, and that's really important, the year. You'll see in a second. There was mob violence, and blacks were being slaughtered in the Atlanta area. And it all came to a screeching halt when they came to a specific neighborhood where they started shooting back and defending themselves. Well, the mob withdrew, and they came back a day later, and they brought police with them to disarm the blacks in the neighborhood. It's mind-boggling. They weren't stopping the mob; they were disarming the victims. And isn't that what gun control is always about? Anyway, as they started to disarm them, somebody shot a cop off his saddle. That's why the 1906 is important. Wasn't really, cop cars yet. And that brought it to a screeching halt. A guy, we don't know who it was, what his name was, but he shot a cop and killed him. And once they saw that they were even ready to shoot the people who were trying to disarm them, that ended the mob violence. It ended the disarmament. So all that to say, it is really important that government does not have a monopoly of force. I mean, that our founders would roll over in their grave, because what they fought for was to limit the power of government. That's why we have a constitution of limited and enumerated powers and separation of powers and federalism, which further diversifies the powers between federal and state. And oh, by the way, the police, and actually they didn't even have police at that time, but the military was not to have all the weapons. And that's why the Second Amendment was so important. And the Militia Act of 1792, where everybody 18 and over was to bring their own weapons when called up for duty.
Required.
So they were required to. So
By law.
this just shows they did not want just the military having a monopoly of force. Otherwise, you end up looking like a lot of countries overseas. And quite frankly, that's why we've never had a Hitler or a Stalin problem in this country.
Any great genocide, both of the world wars, any giant massacre against any specific group, religion, or race, like that, it all starts with the
Absolutely.
mass disarmament of the population. That's the first step. And so I don't know. Call me paranoid, but
that was a bit of a
I'll keep my
long
rifle,
answer.
thanks.
Bit of a long answer, but hopefully that helps in terms of your discussions.
I think it will. And it's something that we always discuss, and it's never an argumentative discussion. It's we like to have that debate
Yes,
and
I understand.
figure that out. And so and it's just always interesting because she understands my perspective, but it's tough for me because I don't live in a world. It's hard for me to understand. Wait, what? You don't want a lot of guns and you don't want high-powered guns? Are you feeling well? Here, let me help you. So it's just always weird for me. So I want to always be cautious of that. So you mentioned talking about getting some wins and chipping away at the tree of the ATF. When I say how's it going, I mean, I'm sure it's just, hey, slow and steady is going to win this race, unfortunately. But, what are your thoughts, personal thoughts about how this is going to play out if we are able to either remove firearms from the ATF control or remove some of the restrictions that they're having on us?
Well, our goal is to get rid of the agency one day. Of course, that's also going to mean we've got to get rid of the gun control that they're enforcing. Otherwise, other agencies will be enforcing it. But that's the ultimate goal. And I would say even if it takes many years to get rid of the ATF, something that we can do even beforehand is get rid of and abolish the registry that they're managing. That is so important.
Let's go.
To get rid of that. So that's, and I think we've really got a receptive audience on Capitol Hill for that. There's legislation in both the House and the Senate. It's Cloud of Texas in the House and Risch of Idaho in the Senate. And in fact, we sat down and interviewed both of them and posted both interviews. But it's just really encouraging to see these guys wanting to take that registry apart. And so, anyway, I think in whatever we're asking of our legislators, we constantly have to keep reminding them. And oh, by the way, we want abolish the registry. That's really, really important. So just always keep bringing that up to them. So in addition to that, there's so many other things. I guess if we're just talking ATF. My goodness. I mean, now the Trump administration wants to cut them by 28%. See, this is how you do it. You just start, you start chipping away. We didn't lose a lot of our liberties overnight in one big grab. It was chipping away. And so in the same way, we chip our way back many times towards freedom. So we are all about that. Yeah, let's cut them by 28%. And then, on the other hand, let's get concealed carry reciprocity. Now, that's going to be a little bit harder because you have the filibuster. But I tell you what, there's other things be looking for. We're very excited. I think we're going to be able to get suppressors out of the NFA as well as SBRs and SBSs. So that is actually doable. And so if people are following our
Huge.
alerts and taking action, it's really
Huge.
critical at this time.
Yeah, I'm having to DocuSign a whole lot of stuff every time I get emails. We're having to do some signatures and call our senators.
Let's do it.
Yeah, because I think it's interesting with the registry you brought up, because in no other well, I can't think of another area of the ATF where registries exist. Or if the thought of having to create a registry to create some sort of database to help make the roads safer from DUIs, so we need a registry to figure out who's buying beer and how much they're buying, and that way we can.
Can you imagine a bound book for your whiskey bottles, Mike?
Yeah, God. Yeah, my bound book for whiskey would be screwed. But the thought of that just sounds so comical. But in reality, it's basically the same thing they're doing to firearms, or they're trying to do. Now, I understand my side of it. I'm an FFL, so I get it. I'm going to have some oversight, and I signed up for that. So, I take that as it comes. But I did that just so I could impart my knowledge and keep spreading the gospel of the good firearms, get them out there into people's hands. But yeah, just thinking of that, or tobacco, we want to talk about, lung cancer. We want to talk about that. Like, oh, we need a register to figure out who's buying tobacco, and let's just start tracking that. And, the thought's comical, but if you were to ask that and combat that in a court saying, what if we have to do this too? You'd see a lot of people backtracking on a lot of stuff they have to do. It's just weird to me that they can pick on the gun guys. And
did anyone think to maybe send them a letter to remind them that alcohol and tobacco kills way more people than guns? I mean, least we could do is ask, right? Send a nice little note or something.
Thanks, Matt. As I'm smoking my cigar and drinking some bourbon, thanks.
I
Matt.
mean, look, live dangerously, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of living dangerously, I'm excited that I want to go ahead and get into the event you guys are having.
Let's go.
August, because I'll be living dangerously, because we're going to go out there and get around a whole lot of our other fellow creators and industry members. And we had John Farner on last year from State of the Second to come talk about goals and give the plug. And I was like, man, we really need to have Erich on, because first off, I wanted to hear about the inception, why did you guys want to, put a show on? And then secondly, we were hearing before the show even started, the response was so well, you guys had already went ahead and secured the Knoxville Convention Center for the second straight year.
That's right.
So I guess give us the pitch. If you're on the fence right now and you're listening, like, I don't know, a SHOT Show I can't get into because I'm not in the firearms industry, and NRA is cool, I go to that. Why should someone go to Goals?
Well, you mentioned SHOT Show. This is like SHOT Show for the common man. That's what's so cool about this. There's just acres and acres of guns and accessories, and you've got the big companies, Brownells, Henry, Glock, a lot of the others, and so it's just it's exciting to have them all there under one roof. Daniel Defense and PSA, many others. So it's there's that aspect. Plus, there's a lot of your favorite speakers that you might like in the 2A space, like Brandon Herrera, the AK guy, John Lovell and Dana Lash, and of course even some political personalities like Carl Higbee and Chris Salcedo, and there's even some others that we're going to be announcing. In fact, one of the things people can do is if they go to gunowners.org/goals, they can see updates on who's going to be there and what other gun industry types we're announcing. The other thing that I would encourage is just sign up for our emails too. That way it just comes to your inbox. So gunowners.org/subscribe. and that'll then we'll be telling you, here's yet one more being announced. But I think one of the things that is really unique about our show. And by the way, just so much thanks to you guys for coming out last year, and the fact that you're going to be there again. It's guys like you guys that really help make this a success, and advertising it. I mean, that's really helpful. But one of the things that I think really makes this unique is, one, we really drive to aim and encourage people to activism. And the other thing is that we really have an emphasis for kids. So we really want this to be family friendly, and we have a kids zone, and we got rave reviews. I mean, just the things
It was fun.
that kids were able to do the whole time while they were there. So, mom and dad can be browsing elsewhere. So, there's stuff for the family, and that we're even planning to expand all the more for this year, because we saw it was such a success. But also encouraging, like I said, people to activism. The big push last year, because it was an election year, in fact, we touched on this earlier, was, hey, take 3 people to the polls who don't typically vote. And we heard anecdotally from lots of people, they took up that challenge, and they actually did that, got out of their safe space and encouraged their pro-gun, pro-constitution thinking friends and family who they know just can't be bothered to vote, and said, hey, this is a really important election year. And just so many stories of, I was able to get, people to come with me to the polls. In fact, one family member told me, Eric, I'm voting just for you.
So that's all that matters. Who cares?
Right.
Who cares?
That's right.
Yeah. What I found interesting, and the show, I didn't say the dates, but the show is August 9th and 10th, which is a Saturday, Sunday. If you are listening and you are part of the industry and you are wanting to go for the full show, there is an industry range day as well as an industry only day, which will be range day Thursday, industry only day Friday. Highly recommend you go check it out. But what I thought was interesting was we actually got to walk around and see everyone and do all of our stuff during the media day, the influencer day on Friday, which allowed us to sit down and go support some of our friends that were in the taking on speaking roles and getting up there and during the seminars. And those seminars, there's a lot to be said for those, and I think that all of us would be much better activists if you just picked one seminar and said, I'm just going to go sit on this one. They're free. You're already there. You just got to go up the escalator, walk in, and sit down. Super, super enlightening. Hearing people, like you said, from like Brandon Herrera, Cash Patel was there last year.
Yes.
John Lovell, but then it even gets more down to it with Grassroots, where there's panels of 5 and 6 people, and you get to hear different opinions based off of religion, such as, the Pew Jew was there. Tracy Guns was there, and she was talking about as a woman, her experiences and how she's portrayed. You just got to hear a whole lot of different walks of life talk about why the Second Amendment's important to them. And I don't think it could be said any better than that. It was just a really great experience.
Well, I appreciate that, and so glad you guys were there, and definitely look forward to seeing you guys again. So, that's just one of the other reasons for people to come, is just to see, if they watch, podcasts like yours and others, just to see the people that, that they're constantly watching. I mean, that right there is a lot of fun.
Yeah, we were taken back when we met you. I'll share the funny story. When we met you, our third co-host, who's no longer with us, Adam, he really wanted to meet John Lovell and really wanted to invite him on the show. And as we were walking down that hallway, that door opened into the green room. Well, we didn't know it was a green room. And we look in there and we see him and we're like, oh, there he is. Let's go in there and say hi. So we walk in, and as we're walking through, an usher grabs us and is like, "Hey, this is the green room. You can't be back here." And so of course I was like, "Oh, there's Clint Morgan. That's my buddy. I'm going to go say what's up to him." And she was like, "Make it quick." And out of nowhere, you came in and you were like, "What are you guys doing here? Let's get pictures." And I was like, saved by the man.
We just gotta pass.
Yeah, like we were not supposed to be in this room, and all of a sudden we're taking pictures. Like, okay, I think we're here.
Pratt knows who we are.
Yeah, let's
That's
leave.
awesome.
Let's leave before they ask us for something else. We got to.
Yeah.
But it was so funny how we got in, and then we walked out of there, and it was like, yeah, we weren't supposed to be in that room.
We weren't supposed.
But it was okay. It was all fun. It was all fun.
We're mostly
So-
harmless though. We wander a little bit, but we're pretty harmless.
So compared to last year, I hear just want to, if it's not exact or
Man.
you're trying to firm up, it's okay. But I heard last year, it was more intimate because it was the year one. You were trying to get this thing off the ground. This year, there's more vendors and more manufacturers saying, "Oh, I guess these guys
Yeah.
were for real. Let's get on board." So I heard you ended up. Is it true you guys had to basically take the whole convention center this time?
Yes. Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Let's go, dude.
That is so awesome. That is
Yeah.
so awesome. Yeah, because it was so great because the setup last year was amazing, and we got to walk through and see everyone. And for people that are wondering, if you're just trying to run through real quick, could you walk that show in, half a day? For sure. But if you wanted to stop and actually talk to people
Right.
and ask for advice and get some input on products, I mean, it took a day and a half to do if you wanted to actually do yourself justice. So with that, and then on top of that, all of the speakers, it was definitely a 3-day event for us. And so now that it's almost doubled in size, you're right. It's going to be a little bitty, little miniature shot show. That's going to be awesome.
Definitely looking forward to it.
I think it is important to note, though, like especially if somebody's been to SHOT Show, that at least my experience at Goals was it was more intimate, and I did appreciate that. Like, you're not just running around. Well, I mean, maybe Eric and the team, they were running around like chickens with their heads cut off, but as an attendee, as part of the media, and then also on the day that was open to the public, it was intimate. You got to talk to people from these companies. You got to meet new folks. Guys like me and Mike, we got to meet new folks to bring them onto our show, and it wasn't near the level of stress that SHOT Show is. Like, SHOT Show is a madhouse, and GOA was.
It is a madhouse, and every year it's at the same place, and I still get lost every year. Right? How does that happen?
Yeah.
So you don't have that problem at the Knoxville Convention Center.
I think the only person who doesn't get to, well, you being one of them, but I think the guy last year who I saw that was at Goals that just really was glad they were there, but didn't actually get to enjoy the show. And that's probably the hardest working man in the business. And that's Clint Morgan. That guy just, every time you saw him, he's like, "Man, I promise we're going to talk. I got to go. I got to be back on stage in 3 minutes."
Guy was
But
just trying to eat a
he
taco, dude.
He did a stand-up job.
Yes, he did.
John and Kaylee did great getting all
Great.
that stuff together. Everybody at Goals, definitely, they all get the flowers on this. It was a great show. We were excited. And when we came back, it was, as soon as we got back to Nashville, because they were all staying at my house, when we got back to Nashville on Sunday, it was the decision like, all right, well, they're already booked for next year, so let's just go ahead and carve it out in the schedule. We're coming back.
Well,
So
thank you. Look forward to it, guys.
yeah, it's going to be great. So I guess before we wrap this thing up, I wanted to ask you just if you could look into the crystal ball over the next 5 years. I mean, we talked about, the SBRs, the silencers. What's the, if you could just kind of direct the entire organization on where to go, where would you like to see GOA? What are the top priorities over the next 5 years?
Well, in terms of priorities, then we talked about some of them. Get rid of the ATF, get rid of the registry, get concealed carry reciprocity. I mean, and I think in terms of legislation, because that's what we've been through our whole existence was to defend our God-given rights, to own and carry firearms, and really the most effective way to do that is in legislation, because legislators have to answer to the people, right? So we always have that pull over them.
You're supposed
Once
to.
something gets passed and now you're fighting it in court, they're not responsive to the American people. And, we'd like to think, well, they're just going to do what's, right according to the law and the Constitution. But we know that doesn't happen, right? I mean, judges come with their own biases. And so even, one of the most astounding things, even when you win in court, a lot of times it's not 100% win. You still get nicked in a couple areas. So, where you get your 100% wins is fighting things at the legislative level. And so yes, we're fighting in the courts, but that's why we spend so much effort trying to do things through the Congress and, through the administration, et cetera. So, I just think in those terms, we can do some of these things like abolishing the registry and getting SBRs and suppressors and things like that out of the NFA. I mean, yeah, the ultimate goal, get rid of every single gun control act. But, just in the same way that we've lost ground, we talked about this earlier, piecemeal. Well, we can also take ground back piecemeal. So those are a lot of the battles that I would like us to be engaging in the next few years.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, man, Matt, I think it's about that time, dude.
I think it's about that time. Eric, we warmed you up at the beginning of the show for our last final question, all for fun. And like I said, we've met a couple of times. I've had a talk. I've watched a lot of your content. I'm now almost done with
reading the book.
Almost done with one of your books. I haven't read the other one. But I don't know a lot about Eric as a gun guy. I know who your father was. I know your family a little bit even, but what are your tastes in guns? We want to know, what are Eric's top 5 guns?
And you don't have to get brand specific if you don't want to, and that's completely okay.
Sure. Well, I just love AR-15s. So that would certainly be one that would have to be on my list. And plus, I've always been a Glock guy. I've got, in all shapes and calibers. So those would definitely be two.
Two staples around here.
Yeah, if you're talking, like zombie apocalypse, that's, I'm going to have that. Of course, for something extreme like that, I would want something just even something that I've never shot before, like a Gatling gun.
Yeah, get silly.
How
get
fun
silly.
would that be?
A lot of fun.
That they're legal.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
And the old crank ones aren't even an NFA item.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Who's bringing?
That's what I mean. That's
who's
crazy.
bringing? Who
Not
is
crazy,
bringing
that's
this?
crazy good.
Who is bringing this to the range day? The Thursday of goals. Like we need a Gatling gun.
find
there
somebody.
it is. We'll put it
We
in the
do.
universe. It's in the universe.
All right, so we got an AR, a Glock, and now a Gatling gun. That's 3.
Yeah. So, a gun that I just absolutely love. I say I'm a Glock guy, but we were offering a 9mm Canic, where people could purchase it, and it came GOA engraved. It's the Meta. And, I was like, hey, I'm going to support the cause. And so I bought one. I fell in love with that thing.
Good.
I bench rest tested it against all my other carry handguns, and it actually won out. And it has up to 15 round capacity. So I'm just now a huge Canic Meta. They're 9mm. I love that thing. So I'm going to have that
Good.
with me. Because that would be one that fits inside the waistband very nicely. Yeah, the Glock 19 you can, but it's much more comfortable outside the
As
waistband.
long as you're standing
Oh,
upright,
yeah.
don't have to tie your shoes or sit down too much, the Glock
Yes.
19's fine.
If I have to walk, a Glock 19's out.
Yeah.
And so then for the last thing, you said if there's, anything you could add, well, let's make machine guns legal again. And so then just Katie, bar the door. I mean, just anything would be fun, right?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So I think those would be my 5 categories.
Those are great picks. Those are great picks. Well, before we get out of here and do our closing statement, Eric, we always ask everyone to plug where they can find you guys. So go ahead and plug GOA for us.
Sure. Well, they can find me personally on Twitter at Erich M. Pratt. So go, encourage people to follow me, but also go, follow us on social media at Gun Owners. And, the key, really, how we mobilize people, yes, through social media, but I think our bread and butter is through email. And so, people go to gunowners.org. And then you add a /subscribe on that. You'll be able to sign up for our email list. It's free, and we don't share that list with anybody. It is there purely for putting pain on legislators. That's what we use it for. So you're not going to be getting, 50 emails a week about different offers and things like that. That's not what we use it for. It's there as a weapon, political weapon, so to speak, to get things accomplished and kill, gun control legislation, which we've been very effective at doing. So, I really encourage people to sign up on that list if you haven't already, because the more people we can mobilize, the louder voice we have in Congress.
Thank you so much for that. So, guys, we've just about ran out of time, but before we leave, like I always do, parting thoughts. And it's almost perfect that Eric's here with us. If you were groomed for this job like he was, and you speak legalese, and you don't mind fighting at the steps of the courthouse every day, we need more people like you. But if you're not like Eric and you're looking for a place to start, a good place to start is $25 at Gun Owners of America. Real easy, gets you a year membership. That also is free admission into the Goals event if you're in the area and want to go. If not, just know your money's being put to use. Or you can do like I do, and I challenge every one of you to do the same thing. Take a new person shooting. Take someone out, teach them responsibly how much fun this is. Again, I always say this, 95% of what we do is for the fun of it, and we all hope and pray we never have to use that 5% in life-saving measures. It's more about the community and enjoying the sport that firearms are associated with. So, again, take a new person shooting. $25 to GOA will go a long way. And on behalf of Matt and myself and Eric, we want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys at GOA.